Monarchs, this is Mrs. Sutro, and today we are going to talk about abstract concepts and thematic statements in literature. So your essential questions for today are, why do we read literature? And how do authors help us to understand life and human nature through literature? So before you can understand why we read literature or even start thinking about theme, you need to know what abstract concepts are. So an abstract concept is an idea that does not have a physical or a concrete existence. It's something that cannot be experienced with any of the five senses, and it's something that is very complex and difficult to fully understand. It's difficult for kids to understand, it's difficult for adults to understand, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So, abstract concepts are things that cannot be experienced with the five senses, whereas concrete things are things that can be experienced with the five senses. So, some examples of abstract concepts would be education, drama, friendship, jealousy, war, poverty, and responsibility. Whereas a concrete noun would be like a book or a credit card or makeup or clothing, guns, dollar bill, or a car. These are things that can be experienced with the five senses. You can hear them, you can touch them, you can see them, you can taste them. I wouldn't suggest it with any of these, but it is possible. So these are things that can be experienced with the five senses. But the abstract concepts cannot be experienced with the five senses, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist.
Let's pretend that this is you, and you have decided to read a book. And let's say that book is Harry Potter and the Abstract Concepts, because we're talking about abstract concepts. So as you're reading Harry Potter and the Abstract Concepts, you might read about things like love, responsibility, friendship. So really, you're not just reading a story about Harry Potter and the abstract concepts. You're learning how these abstract concepts actually impact the world. How do they affect the world at large? So Harry Potter and the Abstract Concepts is really a magnifying glass that helps you to take a closer look at some of these big issues that are relevant to our own society today. So when you're reading Harry Potter and the Abstract Concepts, by the end of the text, you should know a little bit more about friendship. You should know a little bit more about power, or perhaps about privilege or responsibility. You should know more about all of these things. But without this book, you wouldn't see these at all. You wouldn't understand how all of these concepts affect the world at large. So why do we read literature? Because literature is a lens that clarifies a lot of these complex and sometimes blurry issues within the world. They help us to see things clearly and from a different perspective. And they give us experiences that we may not have experienced otherwise.
Okay, so now that you understand why we read literature and that it has something to do with abstract concepts and taking these complicated ideas and clarifying them a little bit, let's focus on how you can do that. So there's this thing, it's called literary theme, and don't get it confused with a party theme. A literary theme is the central message of a literary work or the idea the author wishes to convey about an abstract concept. It's always written as a full sentence about life or about human nature, and it's usually implied, not directly stated, whereas a party theme is something that inspires decor or costumes, music, activities. It's usually one or two words, and it's something like Disney princess or cowboy or Batman or ballerina. It's not a message. So a very, very common mistake that students will make when talking about theme is instead of identifying a literary theme, they will use a party theme. They will simply write one word and call it a day. Don't confuse literary themes with party theme. Consider this. The theme is the meaning of a work. Can the meaning of a work be love or hate or greed? No, that doesn't make any sense. Those are topics, not themes. So the theme is the statement an author is making about a topic. And since it's a statement, it needs to be a full sentence. So let's take a look at these subjects and themes. And we have a subject that we have stretched into a theme. So the first one, love, is our subject, and if taken to extremes, love can be negative rather than positive, is a theme. It's a statement about life. Trauma versus values could be a subject, or people rarely change their values and beliefs unless influenced by a traumatic event could be our theme. Courage could be a subject, or courage allows people to attempt difficult tasks in their lives even when there is a chance of failing would be our theme. And then independence is a subject, and independence is necessary to grow up, though it can be scary at times, is our theme. So subject and theme are not the same thing, although they are certainly related. So a theme is not a moral or a command. It doesn't tell us how to behave by using words like should or by commanding us to do something. Instead, a theme is an observation. It makes a comment about the way things appear to be in reality. A theme is not a common saying. It's not a cliche. It is not something that we hear all the time. Instead, a theme is original and thoughtful. It should be something that you find interesting, perhaps a bit philosophical, with wording that you come up with by yourself. A theme is not specific to the text. It doesn't refer to the specific characters and events within the text. Instead, it's general. It's about reality. It translates the characters and the plot into generalizations, such as people or parents or raising a child, etc. A theme is not absolute. It doesn't use words like all or none or everything or always, because those types of statements are rarely true and usually impossible to prove. Instead, a theme is reasonable. It uses terms like sometimes or often, or it refers to limited circumstances to suggest a more realistic view of the variety in life. So here are some helpful hints about theme. Do draw general insight from a character's behavior, but don't refer to specific characters in a thematic statement. Do use qualifying words in a thematic statement, such as sometimes, can, may, and often, but don't use broad generalizations with words such as everyone, always, never, and all. Do express the theme as an insight into life, but don't make a thematic statement too general. Do express the theme in your own words, but don't express the theme as a cliche or a familiar saying. Do express theme as a general comment on a subject, but don't express the theme as a moral. And do stretch an abstract concept into a thematic statement, but don't express the theme as a subject or a topic alone. So, to communicate theme to an audience, you'll want to use the 5-step process to writing strong thematic statements, and it's all about abstract concepts. So, step 1, list the abstract concepts prevalent in the text. So, these might be single words such as alienation, prejudice, ambition, freedom, love, loyalty, or they may be longer phrases such as the relationship between love and hate, the quest for freedom, overcoming obstacles, etc. Step 2, analyze how the author presented the abstract concept in step 1. So consider how the literary devices communicate the abstract concept to the reader. You might think about the characters. How does the abstract concept affect the characters? Does it cause the characters to change? Why and how? How about conflict? Does the abstract concept cause or resolve conflict? What are the results of the conflict within the text? And tone. What is the author's attitude about this abstract concept within the text? What impact does that have on the reader? How does it make you feel as the reader? You may also consider how setting, mood, irony, foreshadowing, symbolism, imagery, point of view, and other literary devices might help to communicate information about the abstract concept. Step 3 is to revise the details of your observations about the abstract concept of the text to be more general. So eliminate specific details such as character names, event details, location names, and specific consequences, so the statement could be true of any situation. You need to remove the details like character names, and instead of saying that Sally did something, you might say people or women or adults or children or some other term that describes the group of people that the character belongs to. You can change event details such as the party to something more general, such as social situations. Or you could change segregation of white people and black people to something a little bit more inclusive, such as segregation of different races. And you could change the specific names of places like New York to something a bit more general like large cities. Or take the bad words that characters might use within a text to refer to other people, some of those derogatory terms, and instead change it to profanity, something more general. So we're not talking about the specifics with theme, we're talking about the general idea that that specific detail represents. Step 4, condense your general observations from step 3 using the sentence frame below. So this is really important for you to have in your notes. With thematic statements, as you guys are learning how to write them and how they feel, you will always use this sentence frame. So you start with an abstract concept, and then you provide an observation about the concept. And then you add a qualifying clause, something that points out a specific quality about that observation. So, for example, we could have courage as the abstract concept. And we could say that courage allows people to attempt difficult tasks in their lives, even when there is a chance of failing. So in this case, our abstract concept is courage. Our observation about the concept is that it allows people to attempt difficult tasks in their lives. And our qualifying cause, our additional information, our additional quality about courage is that it does this even when there is a chance of failing. So notice that this thematic statement is a complex sentence. The abstract concept and observation make up the independent clause, and the qualifying clause is also a dependent clause. So check out the subordinating conjunctions to write a strong qualifying clause. All right, so we have two types of thematic statements. We have a basic thematic statement, which we now know looks like this with our abstract concept, observation about the concept, and a qualifying clause. And then here's an example that I wrote with some students the other day. We came up with racism as our abstract concept, and the text that we were working off of helped us to determine that racism can cause young people to believe negative stereotypes about others, even when untrue and lacking proof. So we have our abstract concept as racism, we have our general observation can cause young people to believe negative stereotypes about others. In this case, we changed the characters' names to young people so that it was more general, more broad, and we added the qualifying clause, even when untrue and lacking proof. Now, you can also write a thematic statement with evidence. This is a very good skill to have. To write a thematic statement with evidence, you would add information to the basic thematic statement. You would add information about the genre, the title of the text, the author, and then you would add evidence at the end. So our new frame would look like, in the genre, title of text, author, presents the idea that abstract concept, observation about the concept, qualifying clause. This is evident when specific evidence from the text. So when you look at it like this, it doesn't really make sense. But if you look at the example, it states, in the short story, Always Running, Luis J. Rodriguez presents the idea that racism can cause young people to believe negative stereotypes about others, even when untrue and lacking proof. This is evident when two young Mexican boys are attacked by a group of white teenagers because of their race. So now we've added the genre, which is short story. We've added the title of the text, which is Always Running. We've added the name of the author, which is Luis J. Rodriguez. And we've added evidence with two young Mexican boys are attacked by a group of white teenagers because of their race. So we've taken the specifics from the story and we have used them to frame our thematic statement. So just to review, the characteristics of a basic thematic statement. For an abstract concept, that is a topic of a subject or a text. It cannot be experienced through the five senses. The observation about the concept always begins with a verb. What does that abstract concept do in society? And it's not specific to the text. We take those specific details and make them more general. And it should apply to real life. We should be able to take this thematic statement and take it away from the context of the text and apply it to the context of the real world and have it still work. And for the qualifying clause, that always starts with a subordinating conjunction, such as even though, because, if, then, unless, etc. And it provides more information about the observation. And all of this helps to communicate the theme, which, don't forget, is the central message of a literary work. And that is all I have for you for today. Please make sure that you have chunked your notes. Make sure you write a possible test question for each chunk within your notes. Also, go back and highlight the key ideas and the key terms. And don't forget to summarize your notes by answering those 2 essential questions in the summary section of your notes. If you have any questions, you can email me at kelly.dutro@aps.edu, or you can check out my website at mrsdutro.org, and I will see you tomorrow.